So welcome, Ines Saenz. I'm so delighted to have you on our very first Shakti Leadership Dialogue. This interview, which will also become a podcast. And I can't think of a better person to have started this episode and the series with, because you are in Mexico, you live in Mexico, you're a senior female leader from Mexico. And Mexico has just elected its first female president, Claudia Sheinbaum. And it's a big time around the world and for Mexico for female leaders to rise. And today's conversation, I want to really help us all understand it's not just about rights, opportunities, and status for gender equality. Yes, women need to be represented in leadership everywhere, just for equal rights, opportunities, and status. It's about fair chance. It's a moral right thing. But more than that, it's about also how do we show up in a more conscious and balanced way, and how do we bring more feminine qualities to that leadership? Otherwise, what's the point of leveraging the strengths and gifts that come with the gender, right? So before we enter this conversation, I would love to just introduce you to our listeners and viewers. Ines Saenz is as the Vice President of Inclusion, Social Impact, and Sustainability at Tecnológico de Monterrey. She is responsible for designing, developing, and implementing the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Initiative. She's also responsible for developing, articulating, and executing the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan, articulating projects for the common good with social impact, and promoting projects and research on human flourishing. She holds a master's degree and a PhD in Hispanic Studies from the University of Pennsylvania. She has been a professor in the undergraduate and graduate programs of the Department of Humanities and is part of the UNESCO Chair in Peace Studies for Human Rights. Her research has focused on the role of artistic and literary imagination in peace processes. She participated in the founding committee of Impulsa, which promotes gender equality at Tecnológico de Monterrey. She was on the board of Ines Amor International Chair of Cultural Management at UNAM. She currently chairs the Education Commission of the Nuevo León Council. She's also a member of the advisory board of Lab Nuevo León, Pacto Mundial Mexico, and Paseo de la Mujer Mexicana. She collaborated as an editorialist for Milenio Diario, a Mexican journal, for 15 years. She's an avid reader in search of meaning who desperately needs to find time to read anytime, anywhere. And during the pandemic, she created reading groups that formed communities that together imagine possible worlds. So with that, Ines, I am just so honored and so privileged to have you on this dialogue, because you are my kind of woman.
Well,
after my own heart. So, a little bit of context on your work with peace building, with women. Tell us a little bit more about why you have brought your energy and your ideas to these domains. Tell us about your peace work, and tell us about your women's leadership work.
okay, well, being an avid reader has guided me throughout my life, really. That it's a passion that's within me. It's an inner force, and I think I've followed that path. When I used to work at our Mexico City campus, and I needed to join a community, to be part of a community of faculty and researchers. And I was very lucky to find a wonderful group of people who were creating and forming this study group, seminar, and research group, and the UNESCO chair, that was part of the UNESCO chair of peace studies. So it was an interdisciplinary group of people from ethics, philosophy, literature, anthropology, sociology. It was led by a remarkable woman. She's a dear friend, an academic researcher, top researcher, and she was like the lead of this group. It was an incredible group. You know, living in Mexico City is a wonderful experience, but it's also I felt cold. You know, it's so populated. People go and come and go. So that group was like my refuge in many ways. And I could really deepen and advance in my knowledge and my living of these peace processes. Actually, it was very interesting because all of us reflected all the time. There were students also that were part of this group. And it was great because it was a true seminar of, you know, we wrote our papers and they were reviewed by everybody, and it was horizontal. Students evaluated us as well as our colleagues. So it was so enriching. And, you know, we wanted to also be mediators. I mean, that is such an important job today, being a mediator. Now, and we didn't see the polarization we see today. It was 10 years ago. But we wanted to see, I mean, what's the role of a mediator? We took a course, you know, with one of the right hands of Johann Galtung, this philosopher who created peace studies. And he taught us how to understand how to negotiate and mediate in conflicts. And I think that's a very important role, at least in universities. Mediators, I mean, not just faculty, not just administrators, but also mediators. I think that's an important role. Anyway, I grew up a lot with that community. I cherish that community, and I'm nostalgic about it. As for women, I mean, I'm very lucky because now it's my job. So yes. What could I dream of? I've been an advocate for women's rights since I remember. And it's part of my history, and it's part of what many women want, you know, equal rights, equal access. And I'm really grateful to be in this university where now it's an issue and we all want to advance in equality, at least. But when we talk about equal access and rights, it means many things. It means women being mentored, learning leadership skills, and tackling gender violence. I mean, if there's gender violence, it's difficult to have a place where equal rights and access are possible. So anyway, I'm grateful for that.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad they have someone like you in this role. No, it's beautiful. And coming to the next point, which is, yes, we need more women in leadership because it's about equality. But you know, you have done the Shakti Leadership course. You were part of the training that we had at the Women Leading Organizations. And we talk about how it's not about just your female gender. It's about becoming psychologically whole. It's about having leadership capacities, competencies that display both healthy masculine behavior and healthy feminine behavior. Healthy masculine is being healthy competitive so that you continue to grow and be better versions of yourself. You know, healthy feminine is being collaborative in a healthy win-win-win kind of way, right? Without manipulating and giving power away and so on, right? So finding that balance between getting tasks done and taking your relationships along I mean, that is really what we want. We want Shakti leaders in our language who are present and from a place of presence have come into their true power because they are psychologically whole. They know how to be feminine when needed, how to be masculine when needed. And they know their purpose and they live a life on purpose, right? So this is what we're looking for. And today's conversation comes at a time when Mexico and the world is celebrating Mexico because you have a female president, which is such a first of its kind, and even the US of A doesn't have a female president in so many years of its history and so on. So yes, there's a lot to be celebrated. And I want you to speak to the idea of, is it only about being a woman that matters, or what does that woman have to display to be a true political leader in your mind?
Okay. First, I'd like to say that I celebrate having elected the first woman president. She's a very well, regarded academic, scholar, climate scientist, for God's sake. I mean, climate scientists. We need more climate scientists doing political work. And I really wish her strength, courage, independence, to do the right things. That's what I want to say. But anyway, your question is so complex. It entails many other questions. For example, yes, I'm going to talk about women, but also about male leaders. I mean, we need a change in leadership. We all need this Shakti leadership. And I think that my colleagues who are wonderful people, but and good leaders need to embrace Shakti leadership. We all need to embrace Shakti leadership. Now, being a woman is not enough. It's not enough. Why do I want to say this? You need to be conscious of what does it mean being a woman? What kind of experience do you bring to the table? What kind of courage do you bring to the table? Do you really see what others don't see? Because we have an experience with the body, with many experiences that are important when you work with others. And sometimes when we want to go to the top, we imitate masculine leadership, forgetting everything about ourselves. So yes, we need more consciousness. It's not enough to have having women on top, which is very important. Yes, and I think critical mass is important. More women on top, and conscious women, and people can ask. Yes, you won now. We've been having leaders in history, and now that women can be leaders, you are now saying, yes, but you require this and this and that. No, I like to say that this is a requirement for all leadership in the world, in the institutions, male and female leaders. So I think having more women is wonderful. And I think women can embrace and be wonderful leaders. But we all need more than that, than being human beings. We need to work on ourselves a lot. It requires a lot of work, and that's what I want to bring to the table. Yes.
I want to ask you about the work that it requires. So, can you give us an example from your life where you realized being a woman wasn't enough? You had to become a conscious woman, and you had to be more psychologically whole in how you brought more feminine and masculine, positive, healthy energy and balance. The yin and the yang together, the Shiva Shakti together, consciousness and energy together, no? Presence.
Yes.
Give us some real examples of how it wasn't enough just to show up as a woman because you had the job, but you faced change, and then what did you have to do? What was the inner work?
It's such an interesting question. When I was appointed Vice President of Inclusion, Social Impact, and Sustainability, it was at a moment where the Me Too movement in Mexico was becoming very strong. So, I mean, I was appointed, let's say in April, May, during summertime, there was a very big protest, of our female body, student body. So they were protesting against gender violence. They were very vocal about it. And it was COVID-19. So all of us were at home, just connecting ourselves through the digital world. So, well, they wanted a meeting with me, and they were very aggressive, sending very aggressive messages. So I know this was a risky moment when they wanted us to talk to them. But I did. I showed up. Some people of my team, they showed up as well. It was a very powerful moment and a scary moment as well, because they were all covered. They covered their heads. I couldn't see them. They covered their heads. I just could see their eyes. And there were moments where they distorted their voices. It was a very scary moment. And I thought, my goodness, I mean, if this were to be face to face, I don't know. I mean, it was a very violent moment. Well, I was there, and I thought, well, I am an authority to them. I am the institution to them. I represent the institution. So yes, I mean, I have to be aware of this. Even though we can share the same goals, I want to tackle gender violence. I have to understand. So it was a very awkward moment. It was really a unique moment, and I remember it as a very special moment where I had to be firm, assertive, and also, and this is very important, I wanted to understand their pain. I wanted to listen to them and acknowledge their suffering and the injustice they perceived and they had experienced. So the first thing they wanted to do with us, they wanted us to take an exam. So I'm sorry, my sense of humor came, I told them, after I finished my PhD, I said, no more exams, not even doctor's exams. So no, I'm not taking an exam. I'm not taking the exam, but let's talk. I mean, it was like, I'm not going to, to say yes to all your demands, but I'm here to listen to you. So yes, I did not take their exam. I didn't want to, and I'm not going to take any other exam in my life, I think. Just the exam of life, the life brings every day. And well, they started to talk, and we listened. And I said, well, yes, I feel really sorry for what you have experienced. You shouldn't have. And we'll work together. I mean, let's work together and let's build something else. And let me tell you that the outcome was positive in the long run, because they didn't trust the institution at first. They were very aggressive, I would say even violent, and they didn't want to belong to any student body. They wanted to be away and be just activists, breaking the institution's neck. But at the end, they started to trust the institution and become part of the student body, because they were very bright students, bright, courageous, and looking for justice. So to me, it was a very special moment. It was a moment of truth, the moment of truth for me, I think. And it was a moment of real honesty. And what I want to bring into the table is that I really believe in what I do. I do. And I fight for it. And sometimes I am an uncomfortable person to other people. sometimes I try to not to be that uncomfortable. But to me, it was a big success. But it was not a career success. Let me tell you something. It was not a career success. It was like they didn't give me a star or a promotion, or they didn't raise my salary. I did what I had to do. But the quality of my work made me proud. That's what I want to say.
You know, what you just shared, Ines, is a textbook case of Shakti leadership model. So let me unpack it to you as my acknowledgement of who you are and what you did and how you showed up and how you met all the demands of what it takes to be a conscious leader and a whole leader. So you asserted your boundaries, right? That is healthy masculine. You did not let them push you over. You said no test, right? That is healthy boundaries. But you did that by keeping your heart open and your ears open, and you wanted to listen to them. And your empathy was in high gear. You stood in their shoes. You got into their skin, under their skin, to understand life from their perspective, right? And that is the healthy feminine, okay? You stayed conscious through this whole process in this very heartbroken, open, vulnerable place, which is strangely deeply empowering, not just to you, but to the others. So when you are present, you come into that power of presence, which is Shakti, right? So that vulnerable place with your mind open and your heart open, ready to do a win-win, genuine, go one level deeper with everybody and stand on the same side to look at a situation together. You were present, and now you were in your true power, right? And flexing, right? You knew when to say no, and you knew when to say, okay, let me hear you, right? You have to know, you can't say no in the wrong time and open at the wrong time. Then you'll have the opposite, right? You'll have the opposite outcome, right? So that then, and then your congruence, the leader you are is the person you are, is what we say. There's a famous quote from Walter Robb, who was the former co-CEO of Whole Foods Market, that I think you said the institution didn't reward you or anything because you were just doing your job. So really, did you focus on to be a conscious leader, to be a Shakti leader? You focused on your true self, the person, right? Not the role. You went into the person you were, and it was more important that you held the integrity of that, right? And from there, you delivered the best version of yourself, the quality of what you showed up, and with what you brought to the table, right, is something that finally fulfills you, not the accolades or the salary or whatever it is that the job gives you, right? So you touched so many beautiful boxes when you ticked so many boxes when you just told that story. But let me come to the quality of the hero's journey or the heroine's journey that you made in the process, right? Which is a very big part in Shakti leadership, that we are born a little untested. Obviously, we are innocent, we are untested, but then life shapes us and it throws us these challenges as crucible moments, so that in the navigating of those, we come back, if we are successful in navigating them the way they were meant to be navigated, negotiated, we come back with certain elixirs. We come back with the better version of ourselves. We come back with gifts that the world needs, right? So this was definitely a hero journey for you, or a heroine's journey, right? And there are two versions. Hero journey is about facing your fears. Heroine's journey is about finding that inner wedding inside yourself between your masculine and feminine. It's in the realm of relationships, and hero journey is in the realm of tasks. So I would love for you to share how many other such journeys had you made that brought you here to this moment where you had to face this strange crowd of covered faces and distorted voices. You were not born like that. You became that eventually. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your life, your crucible moments.
Yes. Well, I can say, well, I've had a happy childhood, blah, 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 because I did. I also want to share part of my story with you. What shaped me? I come from a patriarchal family. That's for sure. You know, my father owned a successful business. I come from a privileged background, and I am really conscious of that. I mean, when I speak, I always remember my privilege, and that's very important, I think. You know, 6 children. My brother was the oldest, and then 5 sisters. And this is important because in a Mexican family, in a traditional patriarchal Mexican family, and we see many types of families today. But when I was born, I mean, it was more homogeneous. So of us women, nothing was expected of us, of my sister, of me, of my sister, other than the usual women's journey. I mean, and I'm going to be very simplistic, let me say. So, you know, the journey of plants. Plants grow, reproduce, and die. And without scandal, you know. If I could comply with that, my life would be okay. So this is important because those were the expectations of all women, all female people, you know. She married well, she had children, she was a good mother, and she died peacefully, you know, in her bed or whatever. I knew that my brother would inherit my father's business. I mean, I knew that there was nothing for me or for my sisters. But there was one thing that my father, and I say my father, my mother was okay. I mean, he was really generous in education. So I was a curious, avid learner. I wanted to learn, to understand, to know. So I wanted to study at the university, enroll at the university. My father paid for that. I wanted to learn English. I wanted because I really wanted to. I didn't really know what I wanted to be, but I knew I didn't want the life that was like expected of me. You know what I mean? So the first thing I did was study. I mean, I studied a lot. I left my hometown. I left it and to keep on studying. And then I was granted a scholarship at the University of Pennsylvania. And, you know, I got married. I mean, I reconciled with that part that was I was resistant to that. And I married Mario. We are together. We're still together. But it was a very conscious marriage. What I mean is that I was really scared that marriage would be the end of my life, you know. And we talked a lot about it. And I remember him laughing, saying, I mean, it's just, I mean, a step, but it's not the end of your life. I mean, you do what all of you and I will do what we want to do anyway. But what I mean is that, yes, I wanted something else. I was not quite sure what was it. But I think that there are some other things that have inspired me in my journey, and fiction is one of the key, like a magician, I would say. I remember I was studying, I mean, in my undergrad studies, I was reading Virginia Woolf, Simone de Beauvoir, Doris Lessing, feminist writers and philosopher. And I woke up to understand what being a woman meant. And I think I made a promise to myself that I would be independent. And here I am. Now, through maternity, I understand that interdependence is the real thing. I mean, we're not completely autonomous or independent. We need other people all the time. And well, I've learned that also. I've learned it. And let me tell you something. When one of my children, my oldest child, it's a female, just female children I have. Jimena, when she was a child, she used to say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be president," you know. She used to say. So I will say, Jimena, no, you have to have a higher purpose in your life than being a president. Being a president is a consequence of something else. What do you want to be? What do you want to do in the world? What kind of impact? And then being a president is a consequence of that. That's important because it has to do with power. So do you just want to have power? Do you want to be powerful? And for what purpose? Is there a higher purpose for power? I mean, or than power? So yeah, that's sort of my one part of my journey.
I love it. And you've touched on power, right? Which is the whole crux of Shakti leadership. Precisely. This is why I wrote this book with Raj Sisodia, that the whole game is about power. And typically they play power over each other, right? And that is the false power. When there is enough power for all, if each of us comes into our own higher purpose, we have our own unique power, and that power no one else can replicate, and we bring to the table, and we have positive impact, and we are serving everybody. We are included in the greater whole and the work that's happening. So you get the best of all worlds, right? When you come into your true power, you find yourself, but you're also then able to find your place in the world, right? And be welcomed for that. Of course, you have to make a journey. No one gives it to you on a platter. You have to earn it. I often feel of late, I've been thinking a lot of Jesus's life, when we as change makers, regardless of gender, when we are on fire with our purpose, we want to heal the world. We want to help the world. And then you get crucified for trying.
Yeah.
Right? He's been on my mind a lot of late. It's like, oh my God, who am I if Jesus was crucified? Of course, it's doing good for the world isn't as if the world is ready for it or welcomes it always, So that too is the journey to acceptance, that to carry on regardless, and not give up, to still be who you are and give what you're here to give and not shut yourself down, right?
Yes.
To that.
And yes, I know this is part of my generation. When I talk to my people in my team, they're a lot younger than I, and and I think that there are differences, generational differences, and I acknowledge that. For me, I mean, doing the best of my effort, the best I can do every single day of my life is the important thing. If my boss sees it or doesn't see it, I mean, of course, that could be a motivation, but there's an inner force that to me is more important. Yes. And sometimes the ladder, to go up is not the only reward. There are many rewards, and we have to acknowledge that. And that's what I tell my fellows, yes, you want to go up, but it's not the only way to be satisfied with what you do. I mean, are you doing the best you can? Are you passionate for what you're doing? I think that's very important. And hey, we work at a university. And that is a wonderful arena, for higher purposes, I think.
Absolutely. So I want to also talk about two of my passion projects that I think you are also doing in your own way. So where can we intersect on that? After George Floyd happened in 2020, I had a profound need to help participate in healing collective trauma. because I said, until we do truth and reconciliation until we heal our histories of slavery, of patriarchy, of colonization, until we heal our tremendous histories, we will play them out again and again. And we want peace in the world. There can't be peace without healing the past in some way. Otherwise, we're simply carrying it into the future, right? So I do this convening every year around the full moon of July, which is the Guru Purnima, the full moon to the Guru in India. And around that week, we host a worldwide self-organizing event called Truth and Reconciliation Work from the Inside Out, inviting anyone, anywhere to gather around the theme and do some therapy, some healing, some peace building around whatever are the unhealed issues in their communities, around the past, right? Around trauma that is still sitting in the land, still sitting in the psyche. So I know your peace building work is very core to who you are and what you do. So this year's theme is going to be decolonization, right? And how
Wow.
ushering the age of decolonization, and how we have to decolonize ourselves, right? So after coming to Mexico, I come from India, and India, we remember our, the partition, the pain of the partition, becoming two countries when the British left, and, the Hindu-Muslim tension that is always under the surface. And, so there's so many repercussions of having been colonized, that as India wants to be a democracy and move forward, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, we yearn for those unity and universal principles in our communities, but there is unhealed trauma from partition and colonization, right? So in Mexico, I feel I see so many people of colored race and skin. So there's such a mixed blood. And how do you make truth and peace and reconciliation with what's now in your DNA, right? And therefore, has the country actually acknowledged what happened? How do you deal with a Mexican identity? What does it mean to be Mexican? And right, so I would just wonder if you want to briefly speak to Mexico's search for identity after what happened.
Yeah. Wow, it requires like two more sessions. That's wonderful. First, invite us. The Center of Recognition of Human Dignity would like, I'm sure my colleagues would like to celebrate with you. I think that's important. Healing is so important. Recognition and healing. Healing is so much needed. Now, we've come from a very diverse backgrounds, from a lot of pain, from a process of colonization, yes, oppression, racism. Mexico is, and I'm not saying that myself. You look at the figures, and we are a classist, racist community. So how can we embrace ourselves? I am sad to acknowledge that polarization has won over all of us. Instead of seeing what can we do to reconcile all these differences. But I think that one important thing is to acknowledge injustice, to acknowledge the discrimination, and how to face it. And, to start asking ourselves questions. Who is speaking? Who's at the table? Who is speaking? And I see myself, I see the color of my skin. Even if I come from a mixed background, I see the color of my skin. And that's why I say, yes, I am privileged, and I understand. I will never understand fully what being discriminated means. Well, I am a woman, and so I know I have an experience in that, But anyway, we have a long way to go. we have a long way to go with no excuses. And there are wonderful professors, faculty, scholars here at Tech who study decolonization. And it would be wonderful just to bring it and to talk about it.
Super. So
How can we talk? Yeah, so yes, we need you here. And let's say what we can organize, to talk about it.
okay,
At
so
least talk about it.
We will build forward on the truth and reconciliation work. And I feel the kind of community of women who will do best with this work are what I call the Q3 Reginas, right? I believe women who are in their third quarter, in the 50 to 75, these are women whose domestic duties are kind of behind them by now. Financially, they are fairly secure, having been part of a workforce probably. And so now these are women around the world being identified as a very critical cohort that can change the world, right? Q3 Reginas, they are sovereign, they are like queens, they are their own persons, economically and emotionally empowered and independent. And so they are the ones who want to impact for good. And they see the bigger picture. They know how to heal the collective trauma. They know how to organize for it. They know how to bring those healthy feminine and masculine qualities in leadership needed for selfless service of agendas beyond personal interest, right? So are you in your third quarter?
Of course, I am in my good quarter. Yes.
So am I. So as a Q3,
So are you.
I really want to create a program or project to create Q3 Reginas in the social and political sector around the world. Because if you see what's happening in the world today, the political, the wars seem to be unending, whether it is as we speak, what's happening in Ukraine and Gaza and so on. It's like, when does this end? And who can help break the polarization and take us through to a reconciliation, right? And I truly believe it's the Q3 Reginas. It's those women who are truly empowered from the inside out. And you are one. And I would love to also work with you more on how, and looking at Claudia Scheinbaum and looking at the other women leaders coming into political leadership around the world. But I feel we need so many more. And then to help each other do leadership that is truly conscious and truly balanced, right? So that we can have that full impact. So as a Q3 Regina, any closing words for today? What is it that you see in the future and you want to participate in and lead and create?
I want a better world. I want hope, that younger generations can have hope. But we need to work very hard for these small signs that this world is getting better, because it's devastating. The bad news are devastating. So what kind of signals can we see and read that this can be a better world? So let's fight for it. But not fight, not the usual fight as a war. No, let's go for it. Let's move it. Let's move it. Yes.
So we call them spiritual warriors,
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's exactly. You have, you're so wise. Yes. Yes. Spiritual warriors, I would say. Yes. We need it.
Fighting for our futures, fighting for a world that works for all, fighting for inclusion, justice.
Yes.
Wow. So thank you so much, Ines. How can people find out more about you and your work? Is there any way in which you want to have people reach out to you? Would you like to share that?
Well, I have an email, ines.saenz@tech.mx. There are many web pages. If you search for human dignity or sustainability or social impact, I'm there. but it's not, actually, it's not my work. It's the work of so many people doing this. And I've written so many newspaper articles and editorials. If you Google, they're there. So that's the way.
Just Google me.
Well, whatever, yeah, Google me. I don't have a web page. I don't have time, but yes, Google.
You're too busy doing the work, so
Yeah.
taking time to promote your work. So, but it's out there in the world, as you say, and with the ripples you've made. So, thank you so much, Ines. It's been an absolute honor, joy to get to know you better, your life, what shaped you, how you became who you became, and what you wish to bring to the world and see in the world. And you're such a shining example of Shakti leadership. I truly acknowledge you for that. And I hope to do much more work with you in the
We will. We will. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.